And first at 5 tonight, we are covering that breaking news out of Baltimore of a massive bridge collapse. A large container ship losing power and declaring a mayday moments before slamming into the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which carried Interstate 695 traffic. So as you can see here in this video next to me, a huge portion of that structure crashing into the river. This is what we know at this hour. At least 6 people are missing. 2 people were pulled from the water, 1 in serious condition. 5 vehicles falling into the river, Heather.
Air, you can see the destruction left behind right here. Giant portions of that bridge resting on top of the front of the ship. The governor of Maryland has declared a state of emergency. So we want to break down the surveillance video. It was 1:26 this morning when the ship can be seen approaching the bridge with black smoke billowing over it. Just seconds later, all the lights on the ship appear to go out. A minute after that, the final 2 vehicles before the bridge collapsed are seen crossing over the bridge. And you can still see some flashing lights from the vehicles of a construction crew that was still on that bridge. Then, about 30 seconds later, the ship strikes the bridge, causing the structures you're going to see to break apart and crash into the water below. Now, another angle of the tragedy caught on camera and posted to TikTok. You can see up close on the ship as it hits the bridge, and then the structure starts collapsing. In the distance, you see the headlights of one of those work trucks that ended up plunging into the river below. Once that ship declared a mayday, emergency personnel were able to block traffic from getting onto the bridge, and that potentially saved a lot of lives. A search and rescue operation is underway right now for those 6 people who were still unaccounted for tonight. The river measuring about 50 feet deep in some parts. And earlier today, President Joe Biden addressing the nation about this tragedy.
Our prayers are with everyone involved in this terrible accident and all the families, especially those waiting for the news of their loved one right now. I know every minute in that circumstance feels like a lifetime. You just don't know. It's just terrible.
And right now, we want to take a live look at 4 area bridges around Jacksonville this evening. The Dames Point, the Hart Bridge, the Matthews, and the Intracoastal connecting to Jax Beach. Today's tragedy has some of you wondering what type of safeguards are in place for the bridges we drive over every day. In 2013, a Navy cargo vessel collided with the Matthews Bridge. Engineers telling First Coast News at the time it was just a few feet from causing a catastrophic collapse. And in November of 1972, a deadly bridge collapsed in southeast Georgia. Cars, trucks, even people fell into the water when a cargo ship slammed into the old Sidney Lanier Bridge. 10 people died in that collapse. And in 1980, 35 people were killed in Tampa when a freighter ship slammed into the Sunshine Skyway. Most of the people killed were aboard a Greyhound bus that fell 150 feet into the water.
The Dames Point Bridge is one of Jacksonville's 7 major bridges. Cargo ships from Jacksport go under that bridge every day. And besides the safety aspect, what about impacts on the shipping traffic? And is this why that's already a concern? So this is video of cargo ships that are stuck in Baltimore right now due to this bridge collapse. So a lot of people are wondering if there'll be a ripple effect all the way down the East Coast. And questions tonight about how our bridges are protected from a similar tragedy. Renata DiGregorio is joining us live now with a closer look to those questions. Renata?
Heather, when you're driving over the Dames Point Bridge, you can't ignore that view of the many shipping containers and cargo ships right under the bridge where we are right now by the fishing pier. You see these round, large concrete structures. These are one of the ways that the mayor says the Dames Point Bridge is protected. Like the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Jacksonville's 4-lane Dames Point Bridge is also an underpass for large ships from the nearby Jacksonville Port Authority. Mayor Donna Deegan says the Dames Point is Jacksonville's only bridge that cargo ships sail under, close to 700 of them sailing under it over the past year, according to Jacksport.
It is not something that in terms of this type of accident that we are concerned about happening in Jacksonville. I think right now we're also just very concerned about being there for the folks in Baltimore.
Concrete barriers called dolphins are in place on either side of the Dames Point's piers. Deegan says these and air gap sensors, which monitor the distance between the water and the bridge, protect the Dames Point. Georgia Port Authority says the Sidney Lanier Bridge's piers are surrounded by rock areas for protection. Jacksonville structural engineer Ron Woods says the Dames Point is a suspension bridge, unlike the bridge in Baltimore.
The center suspension, like on the Dames Point, is a much beefier construction. So it could withstand an impact probably better than what was happening in Baltimore.
Video from Baltimore shows a number of cargo vessels unable to pass the bridge disaster. Both Jacksport and Georgia Port Authority officials say they're working with cargo customers on possible diversions. We also looked at Florida Department of Transportation data that has to do with the Dames Point Bridge, and one of the things it looks at is a health index. This lists its health index of above 98, and Woods explains that's basically the health of the bridge having to do with maintenance and other factors. Reporting live underneath the Dames Point Bridge, Renata DiGregorio, First Coast News, on side.
Renata, thank you. And coming up at 5:30, we're going to take a closer look at the economic impact of the bridge collapse all along the East Coast. Plus, our Verified team is looking into a viral video that claims to be the bridge coming down. What our team learned in our next half hour.